The X-ray gun beeped red over a rose gold ring a woman wore to her own wedding. Lead, cadmium. In the metal touching her skin every single day for 4 years. She didn't buy it from a stranger on the street. She bought it from a brand with a glossy website, a celebrity ambassador, and a return policy that sounded like a promise. And the question I want you to sit with for the next few minutes is this one. How did a piece of jewelry, sold legally, in a country with consumer protection laws, end up loaded with one of the most toxic metals on Earth, pressed against her finger while she slept? You're not stupid for buying it. I sold jewelry for almost 20 years, and I'm telling you, the people pulling this off are very good at looking trustworthy. The villain here isn't you. It's a supply chain that bets you'll never test what you wear. By the end of this, I'll tell you the one number on a hidden tag that exposes almost every poisoned piece on the market. But first, let me walk you through how that ring got on her finger. It started in a casting house most buyers will never hear the name of. Picture a room in Yiwu, in eastern China, where small alloy ingots are melted in batches the size of a coffee can. The supplier gets an order from a brand overseas. The brand says, rose gold plated, low cost, fast turnaround. What the brand does not say, because the brand does not want to know, is what's in the base metal under the plating. Cheap base alloys are often a stew. Zinc, copper, tin, and whatever scrap got tossed into the melt that morning. Old battery casings, plumbing solder, electronic waste. That's where the lead sneaks in. That's where the cadmium comes from. Cadmium is cheap, heavy, and makes metal flow beautifully into tiny detailed molds, which is exactly what you want when you're stamping out heart pendants and stacking rings by the thousand. Here's the part that should make you sit up. The U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission has recalled jewelry pieces that tested over 90% cadmium by weight. Not trace, not contamination. The piece was basically a cadmium charm with a thin coat of shiny on top. Children's jewelry, mostly, but adult costume pieces have hit the same numbers in independent testing by the Associated Press. The Ecology Center in Michigan, which has been buying cheap jewelry off store shelves and x-raying it for over a decade. So our ring leaves the casting house at maybe 40 cents a unit. It gets plated. It gets a little laser engraving inside the band that says something like S925 or 14KGP, or simply a brand initial. It crosses an ocean in a bulk container. And here is where the markup begins to do its quiet work. The brand buys it landed for somewhere between $2 and $4. They photograph it on a model with good lighting. They write a story about it. Ethically inspired, handcrafted feel. Made for the modern woman. They list it for $89, sometimes $140, and they run a 40% off sale that never actually ends. You think you're getting a deal. You're paying roughly 30 times what the object cost to make. For a piece that was never tested for what's actually in it, because testing costs money and cuts into margin. But the woman with the wedding ring doesn't know any of this yet. She's just scrolling. She sees the ad. The reviews are 5 stars. The brand has a name that sounds like a Parisian atelier, but is registered to a P.O. box in Delaware. She buys it. It arrives in a velvet pouch inside a magnetic box, and the box is honestly the most expensive part of the transaction. Here's what I want you to notice. Nowhere in that journey did anyone, legally, have to tell her what the metal was made of. In the United States, jewelry sold to adults has almost no federal limit on lead or cadmium content. Children's jewelry does, under the CPSIA, which caps lead at 100 parts per million in accessible parts. Adult jewelry. Nothing. You are, federally speaking, on your own. California is the exception. Proposition 65 and the California metal-containing jewelry law set actual limits, and that's why you sometimes see that little warning sticker on a necklace card. Most brands would rather slap the warning on every piece than reformulate, because reformulating costs more than scaring you a little at checkout. So she wears it, every day, showers in it, sleeps in it. About 6 months in, she notices a faint gray-green shadow under the band. She figures it's normal. Cheap metal does that, right? Therefore, she ignores it. But what that discoloration actually is, in many cases, is the plating wearing through and the base alloy oxidizing against her sweat. Sweat is slightly acidic. Acidic moisture pulls metal ions out of the alloy. Those ions go somewhere. They go into her skin. The studies on chronic low-dose cadmium exposure through skin contact are still being argued about. But cadmium absorbed through the lungs and gut is a known human carcinogen, classified Group 1 by the International Agency for Research on Cancer. It accumulates in the kidneys. The half-life in the human body is estimated between 10 and 30 years. You don't flush it out. It just sits there. Lead is worse in some ways because it competes with calcium in your bones and your nervous system. There is no safe blood level of lead. That's not me being dramatic. That's the CDC's current position. Now, I told you I'd rehook you if you already own pieces like this. I know some of you are looking down at your hand right now and feeling that cold drop in your stomach. Don't throw anything out yet. Most of you are fine. Skin contact with intact plating is a much lower exposure than swallowing or inhaling, and the real danger zones are pieces that are chipped, worn through, or that you put in your mouth, which sounds absurd until you remember every necklace chain you've ever absent-mindedly chewed on a phone call. What you want to do tonight is simple. Pull out every piece you bought for under $50 from a brand you found through social media. Look at it under a bright light. If the plating is worn, if there's discoloration on your skin where it sits, if the inside of the band has gone dark and grainy, take it off and stop wearing it daily. Not forever, just stop the constant skin contact. If you want to know for sure, a handheld XRF test at a local jeweler runs about $20 to $40 and takes 30 seconds. Some independent labs will do it by mail for under $100. The brands I'd be most cautious about are the ones that have actually shown up in recall databases and independent test results. I'm not going to name 7 brands by name and get this video pulled, but I'll tell you the categories, and you'll know exactly who I mean. The ultra-cheap fast fashion accessory walls in chain stores. The Instagram-only brands with names that sound like a single woman's first name, plus the word the. The mall kiosks that sell stamped sterling charms, 3 for $20. The airport gift shop pieces that came from the same factory as the mall kiosks. The dropshipping sites that promise gold-filled at gold-plated prices. The trendy hypoallergenic brands that quietly use nickel-heavy bases under their coatings. And the licensed character jewelry sold to teenagers, which has tested worst of all in multiple Ecology Center reports. Notice what those have in common. Low price points, heavy marketing, no published material disclosure beyond a vague stamp. Which brings me to the number I promised you, the one on the hidden tag that tells the truth. Here it is. Look inside the band, on the clasp, or on the small metal tag near the lobster claw. You're looking for a stamp. Real precious metal is required by law in most countries to carry a fineness mark. 925 for sterling silver, 585 for 14-karat gold, 750 for 18-karat, 950 for platinum. If the piece is gold-filled, it'll say GF, usually with a fraction like 1/2012 kgf, meaning a real thick layer of 12-karat gold makes up at least 1/20th of the total weight. That's the good stuff at a fair price. Now here's what to run from. GP means gold-plated, a layer measured in microns, often less than 1. HGE means heavy gold electroplate, which sounds reassuring and is not. RGP, rolled gold plate. And the most dangerous tag of all, no stamp at all, or just a brand logo and nothing else. No fineness mark means no legal claim about what's inside. None. The brand is telling you, in the quietest possible way, that they take no responsibility for the metal touching your body. That's the revelation. Not a brand name, not a country of origin. A stamp, or the absence of one. Flip the piece. Find the mark. If there isn't one, or if it's only letters like GP, HGE, or a brand name standing alone, you are not holding jewelry. You are holding a costume piece priced like jewelry, and you have no idea what it's made of. The woman with the wedding ring. I should finish her story. She got her blood tested after she saw a news segment about cadmium in cheap jewelry. Her levels were slightly elevated but not dangerous. Her doctor told her to stop wearing the ring and retest in 6 months. She did. Numbers came down. She kept the ring in a drawer because her husband had given it to her and she couldn't bring herself to throw it away. She replaced it with a plain 14K band stamped 585 from a local jeweler. It cost her less than she'd spent on 3 of the fashion rings she'd worn that year. That's the decision tool. Before you buy anything that will touch your skin daily, ask one question out loud. What is the fineness mark? If the seller can't answer in 5 seconds with a number, walk. If the answer is a letter combination instead of a number, walk. If the answer is, it's our proprietary alloy, run. Real jewelers know their stamps the way bakers know their flour. The hesitation is the tell. For occasional pieces, costume jewelry you wear twice a year to a party, the rules relax. Wear what you love. Just don't sleep in it, shower in it, or let kids chew on it. Reserve the daily contact spots, the ring finger, the necklace chain, the everyday earrings, for pieces with a real stamp and a real receipt. If you only remember one thing from the last several minutes, remember this. The price tag tells you what the brand wants. The stamp tells you what the metal is. Trust the stamp. You came here because you suspected something was off about the jewelry industry, and you were right. The people who quietly refuse to be overcharged, who flip the piece over before they fall in love with it, who ask the boring question at the counter, those are the people who keep their money and their health. That's the group worth joining. Tell me in the comments. When I described that gray-green shadow forming under the band after 6 months, did your stomach drop because you've seen it on your own skin? I want to read every one of those, and I want to know which finger, which piece, which brand if you're willing to name it, because other people reading need to know what to look for. And if there's someone in your life about to drop real money on an engagement ring, a push present, a graduation gift, send them this before they click buy. The 5 minutes it takes them to watch could save them the 4 years that woman wore lead against her skin without knowing. She kept the ring in a drawer. You don't have to, because here is what almost nobody tells you about that drawer. The piece does not stop reacting just because you stopped wearing it. Cadmium and lead alloys continue to oxidize against the felt lining, against the cardboard of the original box, against the little foam slit that held it upright at the store. 3 years later, you open that drawer to show your daughter, and the metal has gone the color of a tarnished penny left in a fountain. That is not patina. That is the alloy eating itself, and it was eating your skin first. In 2010, the Associated Press ran tests on children's jewelry pulled from major American retailers and found pieces that were 91% cadmium by weight. 91%. Cadmium is the 7th most toxic substance on the federal priority list, ranked by the Agency for Toxic Substances, the disease registry, and it was being cast into charm bracelets sold next to the checkout aisle for $4.99. The response from the industry was not to stop using cadmium. The response was to switch some production lines to a different cheap heavy metal, antimony, which has its own ugly file at the World Health Organization. Think about the math from the factory side for a moment, because it explains everything. A kilogram of sterling silver, at the moment I am recording this, runs roughly $900 wholesale. A kilogram of zinc lead casting alloy runs about $3. If you are a contract manufacturer in Yiwu or Shenzhen filling an order for 200,000 pendants, the difference between using real silver. Using pot metal with a silver wash is the difference between a profitable quarter and bankruptcy. The plating costs pennies. The stamp costs nothing. The lie costs nothing until somebody runs an X-ray fluorescence gun across the surface, and almost nobody does. That XRF gun, by the way, is the same tool customs officers use at the Port of Long Beach when a shipment gets flagged. In 2019, Reuters reported that inspectors there pulled a container of imported costume jewelry and found average lead concentrations of 22% across the sample. 22%. The legal limit for children's jewelry in the United States is 0.03%. The shipment was not destroyed. It was returned to the exporter, who almost certainly rerouted it through a different port under a different importer of record, landed it in a kiosk at a shopping mall within the month. This is the part where people ask me, well, what about the FDA? What about the CPSC? What about the state attorneys general? The honest answer is that enforcement is reactive, not preventive. A piece has to hurt somebody. Somebody has to file a complaint. A lab has to confirm. A lawyer has to take the case, and a settlement has to be reached. By the time that cycle completes, the brand has rebranded, the SKU has been retired. A new version of the same alloy is sitting in a velvet tray under a different name. Protect yourself, because the system is built to protect the seller.